Hey guys, thought I would touch base with you to talk a little bit about the DBQ because, as you know, in this very strange year, 2020, the AP U.S. History test will only consist of one DBQ, a modified, streamlined DBQ. There won't be any multiple choice, there won't be any short answer, there won't be an LEQ or long essay question. It'll just be the document-based question essay. So what I thought we would do is I thought I would do a couple of videos where we go through a particular prompt and we kind of break down how we would approach this DBQ, look at some examples, and hopefully give you an idea how to approach this particular topic. So what I chose is I chose a topic from pretty early on in the course. It's a topic that is frequently assessed on the AP test, and that is the road to revolution, or something to deal with the revolution. And in this case, the prompt says, evaluate the extent of change in ideas about American independence from 1763 to 1783. Now, this is a real prompt that's been used back in 2017. The key phrase here is the extent of change. And so we're thinking about, okay, how were people thinking before, during, and after the American Revolution? So we're looking at 1763. This would be basically the end of the French and Indian War, and then 1783 is the Treaty of Paris, which ends the American Revolution. So that's our time frame we're going to be looking at with this particular prompt. Now, in a normal year, one of the key points of the rubric is that you have to analyze the documents. Obviously, you're going to do that this year as well, but it's a little bit different. In a normal year, you have to utilize the content of at least 6 of the documents to support the stated thesis or relevant arguments. So you're going to use at least 6 of the documents to support your claim that you're going to make at the end of your first paragraph. That's a normal year. This, obviously, as we know, is not a normal year. This year, instead of doing the 6 documents, you're going to describe the content of at least 2 of the documents to address the topic of the prompt. Now, just like in a normal year, you can't simply quote. That's not going to be good enough to receive the points for your describing of the content of the documents. But only 2 of the 5. Remember, we're only using 5 documents this year instead of the normal 7. So 2 of the 5, that's less than half. That's honestly not too bad. So what I thought we would do is we would look at the documents together. Now, because this is an older prompt, there's still going to be 7 documents on here, but that's okay. The more exercise, the more practice we get with that, the better. But just remember, on your DBQ, you'll only be doing 5 documents, not 7. So our first document says here it's a teapot made in England between 1766 and 1770. And this, of course, a reference to the Stamp Act, which, if you recall, was passed back in 1765 by Parliament as a means of raising some revenue to pay off some of the debts from the French and Indian War. And this would be a tax where there would be basically a stamp that you would have to purchase to make documents legal or to publish newspapers, etc. And this was something that really set off a lot of debate and a lot of opposition back in America, the American colonies anyways. And this led to a repeal in 1766. So this is kind of a reference to that, the fact that it had been repealed, there's no more Stamp Act, and then our American liberty has been restored. We're happy, we're good, awesome, good stuff. So if you were to use this in your essay, you would have to describe that feeling of opposition to the Stamp Act in reference to this teapot, and include that somewhere in your essay, talking about how people's viewpoints are changing on independence. Now, that's our one visual document. I expect you'll probably have at least one, probably only one, honestly, since we only have 5 documents this year. So expect at least one map, at least one picture, something like that, and then the other 4 documents being written. So what I would like to do is we're going to go through the other written documents. What I would like you to do is pause the video and actually read the document, and then we'll go through the content of each document. So there you go. This, by the way, I'm going to include this up here at the top. This is simply what came from the scoring guide in the actual on the actual AP test, and so I'll include that up there in case you want to know what they were expecting you to pick up on as far as content. All right, so again, pause the video, read the document, we'll talk about it. All right, so you've had a chance to read the document. hopefully. And this is coming from the House of Burgesses. What do they want you to pull out as far as content? Well, this is, first of all, the House of Burgesses, if you recall, was that self-government of the colony of Virginia. It had been set up way back in 1619. It was a really early example of self-government. The colony's major landmark moment. And the American colonists had 150 years then between this founding and this particular document to get used to the idea of self-government and be able to do things on their own. And the document clearly states that the House of Burgesses believes that the sole right of imposing taxes on inhabitants is basically that of the House of Burgesses, that the king can't just throw taxes on the people just because he wants to, and also that they have a privilege or right, in other words, to petition their sovereign, that's the king, King George III, for a redress of grievances. In other words, they have a right to ask the king to help them out. And so overall, what this document does, as it says here at the top, is it's declaring some autonomy, that the Virginia legislature, the House of Burgesses, has a right to tax their people, not the crown, not King George III. So that would be some, again, the content you're pulling out of this document. Again, pause and read the document, please. So our document here, document 3, is from Samuel Adams. We know Sam Adams. He's the cousin of John Adams, the second president. He is a son of liberty, so he's a great agitator for the patriot cause. And this is basically a statement saying that the people have a right to self-determination. In other words, a right to govern themselves, that the people should have power over the government. And there's definitely some Enlightenment ideas in here. He talks about how in case of intolerable oppression, the people have a right to leave the society and enter into another. That sounds like John Locke's idea of overthrowing a government that's oppressive and setting up a new one. There's also the Rousseau idea of some sort of social contract where people come together and they consent to being ruled by a government. So again, in terms of content, what are you pulling out of this? Well, there you go. That people have sovereignty over the government, and that absolute monarchy basically is not in line with Enlightenment ideas of human rights and all that stuff. So let's move on to our next document, document 4. Please pause and read. So document 4, we've got an address from Quaker leaders to the Pennsylvania Colonial Assembly in January 1775. This would be shortly before outbreak of hostilities, because that's April 1775 when the Battle of Lexington and Concord occurs. So it's right on the cusp of actual outright warfare. If you recall, the Quakers come all the way back to William Penn, and Quakers are pacifists. They do not want to fight. And in this particular document, as we look at the content that you're drawing out of it, this is a statement that is basically telling the Quaker people to not join with anti-British sentiment. Okay, they don't join up the Patriots. Stay peaceful, stay loyal, and that God Himself has ordained that kings should rule over the people. By whom kings reign and princes decree justice, we hope to maintain the fidelity we owe to the king. Right? Fidelity. We're going to be loyal to the king and his government. So this is clearly a very different document than our last one with Sam Adams, who's on the Patriot cause. And you're going to see this with your documents. Typically, there's kind of two camps they're forming with the documents. You're trying to kind of mentally begin categorizing these documents into, two viewpoints, or two, maybe a cause and effect, or whatever the situation is. They try to really kind of group these documents. Now they're not going to come out and tell you the groups. They're expecting you to get those groupings yourself. That's part of the skills that we practice. All right, next document. Pause and read, please. So document 5 is from a Scottish woman, so British woman in other words. She's visiting her brother in Wilmington, North Carolina. Now we know that the South was more pro-loyalist, and the Patriot cause was weaker there than it was, say, in New England. And what she is talking about, and first of all, real quickly, the time is pretty interesting. This is just a couple months after Lexington conquered. That was back in April 1775, so now we're in June 1775. Warfare is upon us. The revolution, the violent part of the revolution is definitely on us. She refers to martial law, military law, in other words, governing. And she describes this situation where basically the Patriots just show up at your farm and they give you two choices: join, or we're going to take your stuff and burn down your house. And obviously that's not much of a choice. And so this would, I think, go into the last documents camp as well. The Quaker document we just looked at. This idea of, being against the revolution, and certainly in this case making the Patriots look pretty awful. I mean, they're scouring the landside, the countryside, and just kind of extorting the people into joining their cause. All right, document 6, please pause and read. So document 6, we have one Charles Inglis, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he's an Anglican church minister. That's important. Anglican means Church of England. So we know which camp he's probably going to be on. And the topic of the document is the costs of revolution. Costs of revolution. And he is basically going through and telling us that this is simply way, way too expensive to fight, that we can't afford a revolution because we just don't have the kind of money. We're sending all this stuff to England. They're buying stuff from us, but even so, we're still short on cash. And if we don't have Britain, we don't have anyone to sell anything to. What are we going to do? We don't know how to pay for it. Where the money is to come from, I know not, he tells us. Now, what's really interesting, he also goes on to talk about how we would have to basically raise taxes, extraordinarily raise taxes to pay for the revolution, which is a great irony. He's basically saying that, hey, we're going to have to raise taxes to fight a war that was all about resisting taxation from Britain. How about that for some irony? So there's the content they're hoping that you will draw out from the document. Again, it's too costly. We don't know how to pay for it. We'd have to raise taxes. This revolution thing, not maybe the best idea ever. All right, last document. Pause and read, please. So document 7 is by Thomas Paine. And yes, that's the same Thomas Paine of Common Sense, the pamphlet that had helped galvanize so many American colonists into patriots. He's writing on December 23rd, 1776. This is towards the kind of the low point of the American Revolution, where things are not looking well at all up in the north. General Washington's army's been chased around. They've lost several battles, or at least they barely escaped anyways. It's not looking good. Not looking good at all. So he writes this pamphlet, or at least part of the pamphlet, called The American Crisis. And a couple things about this document. Number one, it's interesting that this is dated December 23rd, 1776. This is just 3 days before Washington crosses the Delaware and attacks the Hessians and wins this stunning victory at the Battle of Trenton the day after Christmas, which helped kind of turn the revolution around. But they don't know this is going to happen on the 23rd, right? Things are still looking really bleak. And this document you see here has got some famous phrases. It starts out that these are the times that try men's souls. In other words, we are facing a crisis point, and this is where the true patriots stand up and fight, and those who are just kind of summer soldiers or bandwagon patriots are going to just kind of fall away and not stand up and defend their country. There's some great phrasing in this document. He tells us that tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. He tells us that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. I mean, these are just great, great phrases. So the content you're picking up from this is Thomas Paine trying to really get Americans out of a rut and say, we've got to fight. We can fight. It might look bad now, but we can win. We are going to defeat Britain. We're going to defeat their parliament, one that has declared that she has a right to tax us and to bind us in all cases whatsoever. We are fighting the good fight. We are fighting the necessary moral fight. We are on the side of history here. We are doing something amazing. So this is an attempt to kind of give the patriot cause a shot in the arm and say, we can do this. So those are 7 documents. Again, on your actual test, you're only working with 5. But we've gone through the 7 documents now. In the next video, we'll go through them even more. Here we go.